to that, I want to move on because there's been a significant development, viewers, very significant. Barely 2 days ago, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping were standing stiffly beside each other. Those pictures will come up on your screens. Their faces betraying little emotion despite the two leaders having broken the ice and met for the first time in 5 years. They were standing there shaking their hands. In the lead up to the meeting, the Indian side had let it be known that a patrolling agreement had been reached, signaling a disengagement of sorts. The agreement was said to concern Depsang and Demchok in eastern Ladakh. The Chinese didn't say much. They also didn't add much context after the meet, prompting many here in India to mock Modi for once again allegedly fooling the Indian public about his ability to deliver India from a diplomatic morass. Now, it has come to light that Modi was not, in the words of the Congress, indulging in DDLJ, as they said, which is diverting, denying, lying and justifying. In fact, Indian and Chinese troops are well on their way to complete disengagement in the Depsang and Demchok areas of Ladakh and are set to fall back to a pre-April 2020 position by Tuesday. Next week, viewers, 3 days away or 4 days away. Moreover, all temporary infrastructure, sheds or tents will be removed while ground commanders will continue to hold regular meetings. Army sources have told your channel that each side will also continue to have surveillance options in the Depsang and Demchok areas and will inform the other prior to stepping out on patrol to, quote, avoid any miscommunication, unquote. If these developments hold, hopefully 4 years of military and diplomatic tension arising from the LAC will abate. On Tuesday, India-China local commanders met in Demchok. This is how it all transpired. On Wednesday, both sides start removing tents in Depsang and Demchok. Some vehicles were also removed in Depsang. This happened on the day, viewers, that Modi and Xi were meeting. On Thursday, some tarpaulin structures were removed in Depsang. Both sides also removed some tents in Demchok. The Indian Army had expressed hope that attempts to rebuild trust with China will fructify. Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi said, and I quote him, Indian military is trying to restore trust. This will happen once we are able to see each other and convince and reassure each other that we are not creeping into buffer zones that have been created. Taken together, we can confirm that 40% of structures removed from Depsang and Demchok. Joint verification to be done by both sides after tents are out. Both sides will conduct land and aerial verification. Patrolling is expected to be restored by October 31st. Viewers, the positive developments underline the effectiveness of the Indian strategy in dealing with a truculent China. India didn't flinch and stuck to its moral and tactical guns. It's the Chinese who this time seem to have blinked first. Now I want to open this up, viewers, and ask some basic questions. You know that the Jairam Rameshes of the world and others from the opposition had used some unbecoming phrases to describe the Prime Minister, deny, distract, lie and justify, all of that. You've heard it. It's there on your screens. Now what will all these individuals say? Have their doubts been cleared? Let's open this up. Let's have an honest, fair discussion. Colonel Guinea is with us. Colonel Shukla is also there with us. Dr. Ranganathan there with us. Colonel Shukla, does this now look like a more substantive understanding? I know that 2 other Ds, which follow after disengagement, we have to wait that out. But preliminary, there seems to be quite a major development here. Would you agree?
If there is a major sort of withdrawal and disengagement that is taking place, we will have to wait and see for a couple of days whether that gets followed through, what form it takes, how long it is going to take, and so on. But this, as any Indian, as any sort of patriotic Indian, I should say, would agree, is something to be greatly welcomed. In case China is withdrawing or disengaging, it would be a very happy end to a sort of problem that has bedeviled relations for more than 3 years.
If this were to happen, and let's reserve...
If it were to happen.
Yeah, if it were to happen, then let's reserve that for the 31st or whatever, the Tuesday, Wednesday, the time that is being talked about. If that were to happen, would you go to the extent of at least crediting... Of course, viewers, nothing can be detracted from the valor shown by our soldiers who have served 4 years in these icy, very difficult extremes. Let's first credit them, salute them. But a lot of that backroom conversation, Colonel Shukla, would have happened between at various levels, between the army of the two sides, the military, as well as, of course, the executive. Would you credit Mr. Modi in the way he's gone about it, if all of this were to sort of fluctuate in the manner that we are hoping it would?
No, I think that a happy ending, while it is to be welcomed, does not mean that reaching that ending has been done by taking the ideal path of negotiations and so on. En route to this, Prime Minister Modi has kept the facts from the Indian public to a great extent. He has himself come on national television and said that no Chinese, I can verify that no Chinese have entered India. If that is the case, then I don't know what disengagement is going on. But I think it's not worth sort of going on and harping about what happened and how better it could have been done. If we have managed to achieve an outcome that is to the detriment or that is to the betterment of the Indian military and the Indian sort of security establishment as a whole, that is to be welcomed.
Okay. Colonel Dini, two aspects to this. First of all, what's the situation on the ground? You've, of course, served there as former CEO of Infantry Battalion at the Pangong So area, so you know very well this geography. Number one, what are we to take out of this entire information that we are relaying, and can you also elaborate on what exactly has transpired over the last 72 hours that is giving hope for disengagement? Number two, many people have been saying that facts were not revealed, that the Chinese were actually occupying Indian territory, quote unquote. Could you also shed light whether that was actually happening or not? And thirdly, that perhaps the government doesn't deserve any credit here in the substantive manner that it would hope to be credited. These three aspects, could you please hold forth on? Yes, Colonel.
Sure, Rahul. See, first and foremost, what has happened in the last 72 hours has been a breakthrough as far as the completion of the disengagement process. What is disengagement for a layman? It is basically troops pulling back. That's as simple as that. So there were friction points, multiple friction points after April 2020. There were some of the areas in these very friction points, the soldiers were sitting or looking at each other, eyeball to eyeball contact virtually. We saw that in Pangong So, we saw that in South Chushul area, South Pangong So area. We saw that in Galwan. So from there, the disengagement had taken place, previously earlier itself, because there were talks happening at that point of time also. But then the disengagement got stuck in two places, which was Depsang and Demchok. So the last 72 hours has been, what the news has come is that the disengagement will take place from these two crucial areas. Now, once that happens, then what will happen is that there will be these troops facing each other will no longer be along the LAC. They would have moved back further towards their own locations. Now, how far have they gone, or how far is the agreement? That is only the people on ground. They will let us know. But what we understand is that at Demchok and Depsang, they will go to April 2020 situation, and the patrolling will start from April. As on April 31st, the patrolling procedure also will start in these two areas. That, for me, I think it's a very positive. It's a positive thing, moving forward, because disengagement is the first step towards de-escalation and de-induction. So unless you have your troops moving back, you cannot have de-escalation. So I think as far as that is there, it's a first step. And as I have been telling, right from day one, I think Colonel Shukla also was there in one of the shows, in which I always believe that the Chinese will go back, because it is just the experience of serving there, the kind of the modus operandi which they perform and how they go about, what is the psyche. One knew that they would go back. Now, when they would they go back was the only question, but I was very clear that they would go back, because whatever they had to do, I believe that they have done in 1962 itself. Whatever claim line they had to reach, they already are there. It is just about few places where there is 5 kilometers here, 3 kilometers here, 100 meters there. That is all. But virtually they are sitting on the 1962 claim line which they wanted. That is that's a fact which we as Indians should accept. Now, having said that, now coming to your second question, that how much of this is because of
the second question was land actually conceded in this particular standoff?
Yeah, see again, it depends upon Rahul, that where do you sit, to understand this. For example, as I spoke to many people who have served there, what I understood was, see, we must understand that there is an Indian controlled part of the LAC, that is the land. Okay. Now, and then there is a Chinese part, a Chinese controlled part. Now, it is a totally, when I say control, you have patrolling there, you can have your infrastructure coming up, there is no dispute, nothing. Now, there are areas in between where both states want to control, both want to dominate, and that is the area what we classically call as areas of differing perceptions. Now, the conflict started from this particular area. Okay, this particular area where both the Chinese and the Indian troops used to patrol, and there were clashes happening. Now, as far as the Prime Minister, when he mentioned that nobody has come inside, what he meant was that nobody came in Indian controlled area. That's a fact, and that is as it is true as we speak. Now, once we now come to the problem area or the areas of different perception. Yes, there has been all these transgression reports which keep coming throughout these. How many? Even when I was also there, these transgressions happen in these areas of differing perception. Of course, the Chinese came in and we stopped them. We went in, they stopped us. The clashes took place. So there, yes, definitely there was an issue. So what happened after that is that particular areas, those areas are now become buffer zones. And as far as I can say, and I've spoken, to the people who know about that, who are handling those things, the buffer zone is in the areas of differing perception. It is not, and there is a narrative being said that those buffer zones are in the Indian part of the no. The buffer zones are clearly in the areas of differing perceptions.
Right.
The only problem was this Depsang and Demchok area. There, now with this agreement, I think we will go back to April 2020. Now, the final thing again, I would say that it is, when this entire thing started, Rahul, I'll be honest, India took, or rather Indian Army took a hit on its chin. There's no doubt, because we were surprised the way the quantum of force which they brought in was, it was not normal, and that was definitely an issue. But after that, what happened was there were bloody noses on both sides with black-eyed, Chinese getting a real bashing in the Galwan thing. Those who have been there, they know what happened there. After that, as on today, and as we move ahead, I think we can say with a lot of with caution itself that India moves ahead with its head held high. So I'm not going to say put any chest thumping or something, but I am very sure because of the stand which you have taken on ground and the diplomatic stand, we can be reasonably coming out with our head held high
and our dignity intact. Dr. Ranganathan, that's fundamentally at the end of the day. That's really, look, there is disproportionality here. It's inbuilt. We just had a top leader, the German leader, come to India, and he said, look, China is by far today the world's biggest power in some senses, in some aspects. So to have gone toe to toe and not got our noses bloodied and come away with our heads held high, I think is an important takeaway. It's also perhaps a reality check.
Rahul, a couple of points out here. Number one, I've said this before, but it merits repeating. I may disagree with on some points or may not with Colonel Shukla and Colonel Dini, but I have the greatest of respect for both. The reason is that they picked up a gun to defend us. So they put their life on the line for us. So I may disagree, but I have the greatest respect. Now, a couple of points I want to make here. It is a fact that even during the Congress days, the UPA, everyone accepted that a huge chunk of the LAC was undefined. There were areas of differing perception. and there were 600 incursions by the Chinese into the Indian territory. And beyond excursions, the Chinese would come into territories that were undefined. Indians would go into territories that were undefined. Why is it that after 2014, this was considered as something new or news? Secondly, if what Colonel Shukla is saying, that Modi was found lying about that no one came in, the fact of the matter is, in some sense, he is also saying that our armed forces and our generals were also lying, because A, they did not contradict Modi publicly, and B, if they stayed silent, then are they being dishonest? So I think we have to trust someone. In this case, I would, yes, trust Prime Minister, but over and above the Prime Minister, because he's a politician at the end of the day, he has to run the country through those lines, I implicitly and absolutely trust our army, our armed forces. And if Modi said something and it was not contradicted by our armed forces, then I think what he's saying, we have to take it. So that's where I would end. I mean, these 2 points.
Well, nonetheless, viewers, look, there is about 4 or 5 days left for us to verify, and it's always going to be about that. It's about verifying. It's about going back and seeing whether the Chinese are acting in a way that they can be trusted, that there is verifiable, obvious data to show that they are following up on the intent that they seem to have expressed at the BRICS summit. So, viewers, we're not going to run into passing a judgment right now, but it is certainly a very positive development coming very speedily on the back of that handshake, viewers, and therefore one must today sleep a little easier, breathe a little easier as an Indian, because there is always going to be a spin-off, and it's positive. If we can save resources, they can be applied elsewhere. India is not flush with resources. Those resources spent in trying to maintain troops who are bravely staking out that area day after day in trying circumstances, that money, that resource can go somewhere else, and that would be welcome. I leave it at this, viewers. Thank you, gentlemen, for giving us a perspective. Colonel Shukla, Colonel Dini, Dr. Ranganathan. I leave it at this, viewers.